So, welcome to a new series of Women's Cricket Chat. We're on Series 8? Series 8. Alex, for those of you who are listening rather than watching, is holding up 8 fingers for me, so I know. Series 8, and I'm absolutely buzzing that today we are joined by the one, the only, Hen Cowen. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much. And for anyone watching, I'm actually very jealous of the outfit today that you've got going on. Those listening will just have to imagine, but it's fantastic. Hello, welcome. How are you?
Thank you very much. What a lovely introduction on all fronts. Yeah, I mean, it's working from home, so it's kind of smart top half and tracksuit bottoms on the bottom half. But no one needs to know that. I just look meeting ready. That's the most important thing. And importantly here, podcast ready. So delighted to be here.
And that's like the 21st century version of the mullet, business in the front, party in the back. It's like business at the top, pajamas at the bottom. It's all the same.
It's exactly that.
So thank you so much for joining us. We just want to chat, everything you get up to in your role. But, we do women's cricket, but so do you. So if you could just kick our listeners off with letting them know like what you do and how you got involved with it.
For sure. So for those of you who don't know me, hello, my name's Hen. My pronouns are they, them. I work at the England and Wales Cricket Board, ECB for short, not the European Central Bank, as Google would have you think. I have been at the ECB since 2017, which makes me feel very old. And I've been working across women's cricket in the communications department in that time. So for a long time, I've worked with the England women's cricket team, so their media manager, which has meant traveling with them on tour and at home, essentially acting as the bridge between them and the wider world, whether that's newspapers, journalists, podcasts, fans, whatever it might be. Very recently, so the end of last summer, that famous game at Lords with the slightly infamous run out, I moved roles from working with the England team to working across domestic cricket. So I no longer travel with the England women's team. And now I work across the 100 and across women's domestic cricket, regional cricket, etc., etc. So yeah, my life at the ECB has always been women's cricket. I'm incredibly passionate about women's cricket. Before I joined the ECB, I was a journalist. I worked for what is now Wisden Cricket Monthly, All Out Cricket at the time. OGs remember. Yeah, I, like you two and your listeners, am hugely passionate about growing women's cricket and taking it to as many fans as possible.
That's why I was so excited to have you on. And, no one better to open up Series 8, in my opinion. But obviously, Hen, you've worked with the England women's team and now you're working more domestically and within the 100. What are some of the differences or similarities between the roles?
Yeah, great question, actually. I guess I'm still figuring out some of that. I've been working in the domestic game for coming up to five months now. The big difference is the no travel. And from a personal point of view, that's really important. Anyone who's involved in cricket will tell you travel is incredible. But it can catch up with you. You see that with players. Sometimes you just know when your race is run and you can't do that anymore. So from a personal point of view, it's great to be at home in my own home rather than living out of a suitcase. But in terms of the similarities, I think there are lots of similarities. Basically, you're still trying to take women's cricket to people who maybe aren't yet sure how brilliant it is. So, across England and the domestic game, we have people such as yourselves who get it and want to be there and support and raise the kind of focus on it, etc., etc. But equally, we're still trying to get to lots of new people, people maybe who watch our men's team but don't yet appreciate how fantastic our women's team are. Maybe people who love women's football but haven't kind of migrated across to women's cricket yet. So there are huge similarities, which is just taking the game to new audiences, new people, and convincing some older ones that women's cricket is absolutely brilliant, as we all know it is.
And how did you first discover that you loved women's cricket?
So I actually was always a fan, to be honest with you. I think this is for one main reason, which is that when I grew up, my mum was the person who I did sport with. She's an incredible woman. She's run about 10 marathons. Is just an absolute superhero. And my dad had no interest in sport. So when I was very little, my dad would take my sisters to ballet on a Saturday morning. My mum would take me and my brother to football. And that was just how it worked in our house. And I think growing up with her, being in stands with her, hearing people say things to her sometimes, I remember, some unsavory moments where you think, why does it have to be like that? And equally seeing my sisters not get the same opportunities that me and my brother did. Obviously I was kind of male passing and had the upbringing of a boy, and in many ways, tragically, that's quite a privileged and fortunate position to be in. So sport was kind of given to me on a plate, and I was given so many opportunities. My sisters weren't. My mum loved football. I think this led to this wider appreciation of kind of all things women's sport. I remember 2005 really vividly. I don't know whether either of you are old enough to remember it well, but that was my first introduction to women's cricket. So I remember, and she's now a colleague / boss, seeing Claire Connor on the open top bus. Charlotte Edwards obviously was a big part of that series. Catherine Brunt was a part of that series. I remember, I think I was listening to the radio in the car, and they went from the men's test match to the result of the women's test match, which I think was at Stratford. And I think that might have been my first time where I thought, oh, they're playing as well. There were a couple of girls at my school who played, or one girl who played, and then a girl at my club who played. So I had very limited experience of it being a thing until I was about 14. And then from there, just kind of, it took on a life of its own and became something that, I became really passionate about. I think at the heart of it, without sounding like Robin Hood or something, that I'm quite driven by a sense of justice and by people being given the same access to things. And I think the fact that isn't true of women's sport has always been something that has driven my interest in hopefully being a small part to changing that.
Hen Cowen, alter ego, Robin Hood of the world.
I'd take it.
It's a series. Pitch it to the Beeb.
I don't think they'd be interested. I could try. But if we do get the Beeb, I think I might try and give them some of our players as opposed to me.
Nah. We're bored of them. We see them all the time. They're always on the telly. We want the real stories.
I don't think so.
Since you found your passion for it and got involved, women's cricket has changed a lot, and definitely for the better. What are some of the biggest things you've seen and the things that you're most proud of to say that has changed so much since then?
Well, I think that's another really exciting part of women's sport in general, is that it is incredibly fast moving. So every single year it shifts really massively. Great English. It shifts loads every year without you even really knowing how much it shifted. And that applies to all women's sport. Applies to, if you look at the big three in our country, actually four if you include netball. If you look at those sports, each of them is making great strides every single year. And whether that's in terms of attendances, whether that's in terms of sponsorship, whether that's in terms of television deals, salaries for the players, every single one of those things is moving forward across all of those sports. So I think that is a really exciting thing. I think in cricket specifically, I think this summer could be really quite, not shocking is the wrong word, but yes, like another nice big tick, because when England play at Lord's, Oval and Edgbaston in the 3 Ashes T20s, in what I'm hoping are going to be sold out crowds, we've not been there yet, Obviously we had 15,000 at Lord's last summer for the last ODI against India, but in general, we haven't been playing at Category A venues as regularly as maybe we could have. So that's a big moment. I think the thing, and it's very corny, I think the thing that always makes me the happiest is when you see the young girls come and get autographs or whatever, and you can see how excited they are and how much it means to them. And that goes back to my earlier point. As a society, we still give boys sport so readily, which is obviously great, but we don't still give girls the same opportunities. So when you see girls, I remember this, it still sticks in the head. There was a young girl at Bristol in 2017, so a long time ago. She's probably playing for England now. Practicing cover drives in the outfield during the World Cup, just beyond the advertising hoardings, literally just running around as kids do. And it was she watches this and gets it and now wants to play. So all the moments like that, all the moments of you've inspired a love of the game in that young girl, they're always that's the biggest moment. That's the best thing.
So, as we know, it's going to be a groundbreaking year for cricket, hopefully. We've just had a groundbreaking year for football. We've seen the likes of Mason Mount, Ben Chilwell get behind the England women's football team. And now we're sort of seeing that kind of flow into cricket. We've got Owen Morgan, ever the supporter of women's cricket, Owen Morgan, Joss Butler. We even had a Somerset captain, Tom Abel, wish the under-19s good luck for the final. How pleasing is it to see that the big names are getting behind the women's team, because the women's team are phenomenal, and sometimes they do actually also outperform the men's team in big events.
Yeah. I think male allyship is really, really important. I think, you look at, sorry to bring, I hope he's never been brought up on a women's cricket podcast before, but you look at someone like Andrew Tate, the way that men like him can influence young boys, which is very scary, but it demonstrates something, which is that role model thing. And I'm obviously not likening any male players to him, but I think having a Morgan, a Broad, a Butler, make it loud and clear that they think that this is a good thing, worthy of time, worthy of investment, worthy of watching, is actually a very key thing for getting those young boys to understand that as well, and to ensure that the next generation, when they come through, it's immediate to them and it's obvious to them that we deserve the two men's and women's cricket to be seen as equally good things. I remember I worked with the men's under-19s in 2017, the beginning of my time at the ECB, actually. That was the era of Harry Brook, Tom Banton, Will Jacks, a brilliant Middlesex bowler called Ethan Bamber, who I would say is potentially the nicest person in cricket, if not the cleverest, if not maybe both. And even then in 2017, I was struck by how they, as 19-year-olds, got it more than the senior team did in 2017, if you see what I mean. So I think we're already seeing that shift with the younger generation getting it more, but it helps to have, really, really helps to have male allyship. And I think we should see more of that. And I think that it's a massive thing for our men's players to make it clear that women's cricket is good and exciting and worth our time.
That brings me nicely on to my next point, because obviously in football, you've got teams like Chelsea who are very much have that mentality, one club, two teams. Manchester City do it as well, Spurs to a certain extent, Everton. And I think what's so pleasing, especially about the Ashes this summer, is the fact that it's been advertised with both teams, not just in years gone past, it would have just been, I don't know, Joe Root by himself and Sophia Dunkley. But no, this year, it's both of them together. And I think by doing it that way, it's kind of opening it up to more people. And I think hopefully it should have a really positive impact. And also, I just really hope England can do the double over Australia. I'm tired of seeing the Aussies win everything.
Oh, I mean, on the second point, like, I see quite a lot of discussion off the back of the ICC Women's T20 World Cup just now that obviously Australia won. Like, it's so funny. I see some people be like, oh, it's really boring when Australia win. And then I see some people say like, well, no, but they are an incredible sports team. They are an incredible sports team. But selfishly, I would love them not to win something for once. I totally agree with you. Australia are fantastic. That team, the women's team, once in a generational team, I think some unbelievably special players. But I would love other teams to start winning. I'm very, very much an India fan when it's India Australia, because there's something of a India seem more able to beat Australia than we do at the minute. But equally, I think we're more able to beat India than Australia are. If you see what I mean, it's a funny kind of there's something there that's bizarre. But to the first point, I totally agree. The Ashes to Ashes campaign, if you've not seen any of it yet, I'm sure you will see across the next few months. Loads of our players, men's and women, side by side, celebrating big moments. I love it. It's a great piece of work. And the Ashes held kind of together for the first time, put on the same platform, is a massive thing. And I really hope that we see the results of that. I think we will. Ticket sales are going fantastically well. And I expect to see some pretty busy crowds this summer for England internationals against Australia, which is so great. Interestingly, just square bracket almost, it's an indication of how fast these things move, because I think 3 or 4 years ago, probably pre the 100, I think general consensus, and if you look at Australia with the BBL and WBBL, I think the general consensus was, let's not package these things up together. Let's let women's sport stand on its own feet. And it's very interesting. I don't think there's a right or a wrong, but it's very interesting that that's evolving again. Double headers, I think, were a bit like, and now they seem to really work again, or at least they've worked really well in the 100. And I think the WBBL and BBL, like, I'm not saying they've got anything wrong, but I reckon they'd love to be together again now, weirdly, despite the fact that they were able to be independent because they were the strongest league. So really interesting. I just think just an example of how quickly the terrain moves in marketing and promoting women's sport.
All I can hear is the song from Greece. We go together like Jamanamana. And so now that's all I can. That'll be my 100th for this year. So you heard it.
Yeah. Fine. Okay. I'll see if we can get the rights.
We'll always. No, stop. Anyway, so we were talking about Australia and their dominance. And obviously you've been there with the England side touring Australia. And it can be really, really tough when they just keep coming out and they dominate and they dominate. How do you help players sort of manage that? And what's it like being on tour when you are sort of being pummeled a bit by the Australians? How do you help sort of on the mental side, the physical, the motivational side of that?
Yeah, very kind of opposite question. I think it's very, very difficult. I think in sport in general, and look, I've only got experience of touring with one team across one sport, but I'm sure people who have done this for longer or across different sports, different teams will have more of an insight. But I think you really need to try and strip the outcome of what you're doing away from everybody's well-being. And that goes for winning as well. Don't get into a world where winning equals happy and losing equals sad, because you can't control that. You really can't, whether you're at home against a smaller team or whether you're away against Australia. What you can control is what you do, the effort you put in, the preparation you make, the decisions that you take on the field, et cetera, et cetera. So I think as a member of the support staff, and, I'm a very small cog in a very big wheel. Firstly, as the communications manager, media manager, you are beneath a lot of people. Rightly, the words I'm going to say are nothing compared to batting coach, bowling coach, head coach, assistant, etc., captain, all of those people. I am an irrelevance compared to them. So you're never really talking in a team setting. I think what your role then is just to support individuals as you would friends, and there have been countless moments when people ride the highs and they ride the lows, and it's difficult. And I really think it's one of my biggest takeaways of being in this job is nobody on the outside of a sports team understands how difficult it is and how much effort it takes. And the emotions that the players go through are just immense, and the pressures on them are immense. Imagine going on tour for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, away from home, away from all of your support network, and you're measured on whether you win games of cricket. And then imagine you're not even picked. Imagine that you're 12, 13, 14 or 15 for all that period of time. And you go to training and you try and do your thing, and then you have another chat and it's like, I'm sorry, you're not playing. You've done nothing wrong, but you're not in their best 11. So difficult. So difficult. And then you get a chance and maybe you don't take it and you're back to where you were. I think that the picking up of players and the relationships with players is a very important part of the job for any support staff member. And you just try and treat everybody as people, and not as cricketers. And don't tie everything to whether you got 100 that day or took wickets or won the game, because that will come back to hurt you when it doesn't go so well.
And those are perhaps some of the lower parts of being on tour. But what was great about going on tour to obviously you get to go to these incredible places and with some of people that became some of your best mates? What were the sort of highs and lows of getting to travel with the team?
I mean, what's good about touring could be, 10 podcasts in and of itself. I said when I left the job, when I was leaving in the dressing room at Lord's, lots of goodbyes because Lisa was obviously leaving as well. I said to all of the players there that doing that job was the greatest privilege in my life. And that's absolutely true. And I feel so honoured to have been so near to some of England's best sports people, athletes at the top of their career, doing some incredible things. So all of the most incredible memories are people achieving individual things because how much it means to them. I can think almost every player you can think of that's played in the last 6 years. I can think of a highlight for them that stands out in my head as being, remember when she did that? Like, remember how great that was. Remember how important that was for her. So many of them. I remember having a really lovely chat with Danny Wyatt in the Canberra cafeteria just after she scored her 100 in Canberra to win what was at the time a record T20 chase down 160 in the final Ashes T20 of 2017, and seeing her on her phone to her mum and dad. I remember Kate Cross defending about 4 in Guwahati in a T20. I remember, Nat Run just consistently scoring runs and being incredible. Heather,
which
Heather
could also
second,
be a 10 series podcast.
Yeah, it absolutely could. Heather, Heather and I are very close, and I don't think Heather ever gets the credit she deserves from basically anybody. And her second ODI ton at Derby was against New Zealand. I was so happy for her because I know how much she'd been desperate to get there. Tammy climbing the charts. Tammy's nearly scored more ODI 100s for England than anybody else, England women. That's going to be an incredible achievement when she gets there, and I'll be so proud of her. Individual achievements just mean the world. Equally, those moments when you're in the hotel after a game, sharing each other's success and sharing each other's stories they're a very special place to be.
And just on that, we can't have you on and not talk about that iconic 2017 Women's World Cup final. Talk about individual moments. Like, talk us through that day for you, because obviously working that and then having to contain your emotions when you're working on the sidelines and you are such a fan of the team, it's so difficult to control your emotions.
Oh, tell me about it. I am not good at controlling my emotions at the best of times. I very much wear them on my sleeve. Which actually, my previous point about not getting too high when you win and not getting too low when you lose, I was very bad at that. I was very, very bad at that. I remember when we were rained off at Sydney T20 World Cup 2020. Yeah, it was a really low, grim day for everybody because we didn't even get a chance. 2017 was crazy. I was so new to the job. I'd only joined in April. The India game at Derby, the first game of the World Cup, was my first game with the team. In many ways, there's so much that I don't remember because I don't think I was taking it in as well as I should have. I remember I was new to being not a journalist, so I was in the press box, and I get along with loads of the journalists, and they were all they knew how under stress I was, how stressed I was. I was shaking, literally shaking. And I remember Jared Kimber, Adam Collins. I remember they were asking me questions just to really irrelevant questions, just to annoy me in a very friendly way. How many overs has Nat Silver got left? Shut up. And just things like that. How many reviews have they got left? Just to wind me up because I was just so tense. I was a ball of nerves. I actually ran around to get back to the dressing room for the final wicket. So I was at the back of the dressing room on my own, behind the coaches, Mark Robinson, Ali Maiden, Chris Sykes, our analyst, and Ian Salisbury at the time. I was behind them, watching them as Anya took that final wicket. I got hairs at the back of my neck thinking about it. Funnily enough, I was then in overdrive. I did more work from the end of that game until about 2 days later. I was just flat out. I arranged a whole press day at Lord's, which was a huge scope of work. Then I went up to Manchester to the BBC to take the trophy there. I didn't really stop. The next 2 days, I don't really know what I was doing. I was just operating on fumes, to be honest.
So what you're saying is it's very much like Mark Wood vibes, where he was sitting on the washing machine during the 2019 final, so that you were running around and
yeah.
But what else can you do really? Because it's just all that nervous energy. It's something, they work their whole lives to achieve. Not everyone achieves winning a World Cup. And Hen, you've obviously brought them some luck because,
I don't think so, because if you think about it, I've been with the team across 6 years, been to a few finals with them, and we won one. So if I did bring any luck, I don't know where it was for the rest of my time with the team, sadly. No, I was very lucky to turn up as they won that tournament. It was an incredible day and genuinely crazy. Alice Capsey in the stands, Lauren Bell in the stands, Freya Kemp, probably barely born. Like, that was a real Sarah Glenn like loads of our players now were there watching. That's just incredible.
And you have become really good friends with lots of the players on the team, and you're entwined in their lives and they've become friends to you as well. And then you got to present Crossy with her 50th ODI cap. What was that like for you?
Oh, so great. Amazing. I was very, very, very happy to be able to do that. I just wish I hadn't held the phone in front of my face, because Mike Selvey, former England player and Guardian correspondent, someone, I think it might have been James Butler, someone on Twitter said like, "Oh, what a lovely speech," which is a lovely thing to say. Mike Selvey commented saying, shame he misgendered me, not his fault, he didn't know. Shame he's reading off a phone though, which honestly stayed in my heart for 6 months, because I didn't even need the phone. I had it off by heart. I practiced it. It was just there for backup, I was so happy to be able to do that, because as I kind of intimated in the speech, I knew how much it meant to Kate and how hard she'd worked. And I think on the outside, people don't know that about her and about lots of other players. So that was an incredibly, incredibly proud moment to be able to present her with her cap. It meant the world. And
would you put that up there as one of, you've been there when they've won World Cups, you've been there for achievements, Ashes, all those kind of things, but something like that, because it's so personal, would you put that right up there?
Yeah, definitely. Especially as I knew I was leaving as well. So it was kind of like it acted as like a bit of a goodbye as well. The funny thing about teams, and so many players will tell you this, Anya, who moved on recently, Fran, who moved on recently, like when you move on, even if you're someone as big as Anya, the team moves on. They have to evolve so quickly. So there's never the kind of footprint of a specific sports team. It only ever exists while it exists, and then the next game is different. So that was a moment in time for me personally, because they've moved on now. They're in a different world. They'll have a new media manager soon. So for me, it was kind of a time capsule moment. I'm really glad that I was able to be there and be a part of it. It was very funny actually, because normally the landmark cap discussion is one that I have with Heather. It's Sophie's 50th T20 cap. Who do you think would be a good person to do it? Or maybe Crossy would be a good person. Okay. Or Lammy would be, whatever. But Heather was obviously injured. So Jonesy was captain. And I'm sure Josie won't mind me saying she didn't really want the added stress of those conversations. So I kind of had to make the call myself. But that then was like, well, now I'm just asking myself to present a cap. So I rang Heather and spoke to Lisa and said, look, I feel uncomfortable about this, but I do think Alex Hartley was away. I do think I'm the best person here to do this. But yeah, it was very funny because I basically gave myself that job, which was a bit embarrassing, but it was the right decision. I stand by it.
I actually love that. Everyone else goes away and you're like, it's fine. I'll just do it. Don't worry. You want me to do the toss as well? Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry. I got this. That's actually fantastic. So you're moving on now from the England role to the domestic stuff. And we've seen this grow like incomparable to what it used to be, the women's game. How much does that excite you to be part of that? And also the 100. Now we're coming into, we had season 1. We've passed the dreaded second album.
Difficult second album.
Yeah. And now we're into year 3. How much does it excite you to be part of this?
Hugely, hugely excited to be a part of it. I think that the way I've always looked at it is with women's sport, you could pursue a route of just making your England team or your whatever your international team is really brilliant and giving loads of funding to the top. And almost like an Olympic sport, you basically have 20 athletes that rotate across a period of time. But that's not where cricket is. Where cricket is moving is to become a genuinely professional, genuinely sustainable domestic environment. We have 99 professional women's cricketers now, both domestic plus England, which, by the way, is a tantalising number. Like, surely someone just has to fund 100th. 99 professional women's players. In the beginning of COVID, we only had the England players. Now we have 99. That's the biggest step I think the game has made in the last 6 years is those players, Georgia Adams, Marie Kelly, Lindsay Smith, whoever it is, getting to be a professional cricketer, because it's well, A, it's right, obviously, but B, it makes the game so much stronger all the time. They get better. They get to spend more time on task. The pool of cricketers gets wider. Young players can see that they can become professionals. Therefore, we can draw from wider talent. They're not all going to football, etc. So excited. And then the other side of that coin is the profile element of it, which the 100 has nailed across its first 2 years. We want to see packed out crowds. We want to see people coming to watch women's cricket in their thousands and thousands. So we are, and we will continue to be on the brink of something, because we won't solve this next year or the year after. Every year will be a step forward. Every year the salaries will go up. Every year more fans will come in. Every year there'll be more commercial deals. So in another 6 years, when, gosh, I'm still at the ECB, never know. It'll be even bigger and even better. And there'll be more pros, and women's cricket will become more known. And that's what we're all working towards.
There's a word, effervescent, and that, I think, describes your energy about this. When it grabs you, you can tell how much it means to you and how much women's cricket as a whole means to you. I just wanted to add that, because
that's very kind of you.
Isn't it? On this, what day is it? Tuesday lunchtime. No one feels excited on a Tuesday lunchtime, but that's got me excited.
Well, remember, I did just get Eurovision tickets, so I'm kind of imbued within me is a sense of huge excitement from the Eurovision tickets. So, I am passionate, but equally, the Eurovision tickets have definitely had a kind of halo effect on my mood, I think.
I mean, what a year! Eurovision, the home ashes. That is all anyone asked for.
Yeah, it's huge.
Will go down in history.
It will, absolutely.
What about winning Eurovision artist performs at the Ashes?
Yeah, fine. Booked, done. Great idea.
Done, thank you.
Another one. Thank you.
Sign that one off. So we've looked at what's coming up this summer, obviously after Eurovision, but I just want to look a little bit back at you. And last year, obviously, you announced that you were transgender non-binary. What was it like for you to sort of make that step, and how did it feel? Like, how freeing did that feel for you?
It's funny because a lot of people say, like, it sounds like I'm tooting my own horn now, but a lot of people are like, oh, that's very brave. But actually, it didn't feel very brave to me, because I didn't feel like I had another option. I had, for very, 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 very many years, decided that I was never going to be able to share that part of my life and my identity with other people. I'd just written it off as a kid. I was like, well, that's a secret that I'll die with. But as I got older, it became clear to me that I had to. It wasn't a kind of want to. It was a need to share who I was and to share kind of my authentic self, to use a very kind of cliched LGBTQ plus quote. But it's been hugely liberating and hugely important for me. I can't really stress that enough. My life has improved immeasurably ever since, and just not being seen, when I am successfully not seen as a man, as he, him, it is so affirming. And feels fantastic. It's difficult, I'm a very big human. It's still fighting a battle in our society, especially at such a immensely difficult time for trans people. But for me personally, I have hugely benefited from sharing that with other people, and it's made me a lot happier. And
I sort of look at women's cricket quite proudly as a place that does accept people of all their beliefs, loves, whatever, it is a place for everyone. Do you find that is sort of the case in women's cricket as well? It is this really inclusive place because people are allowed, we've got a married couple who have just announced recently that they're going to have their married name on their backs playing for England. And that is something I see. I'm very proud to support a team and an organisation that is so inclusive on that front.
1,000,000%. I think actually I'd go even further. I think being a part of that community and working with a number of gay women helped me actually get to a point where I could live my truth. So yes, incredibly supportive, but also actually I think kind of helped me work out more about who I was. I can think of so many experiences, and actually often it wasn't just our players. Our staff were always fantastic. I remember being in Australia for the Ashes just gone, actually, and I remember Alex Blackwell, who I don't know. Obviously we grew up watching her, but I don't really know her personally. I think we might have talked once or twice, but I just remember her kind of shouting over at me, just "Hey Hen" or whatever it was, and just like the fact that she had taken the time to understand who I was and what was going on. A, just very polite, but B, like, I don't know, I felt a great amount of support from people like Alex, who are actually not in my immediate circle or sphere, but who were in women's cricket and who understood, I guess, a little bit about being different. And it is an immensely supportive place, and that's something I really benefited from. I agree with you. I think it's a huge strength of the women's game.
I think that's also what I love about women's sport, because it is very open. You compare it to the men, like, for instance, Chelsea player Reece James, everyone's always speculating about his sexuality, and it really frustrates me because a lot of people, and you see the toxicity, because a lot of people are like, oh, if he's gay, I don't want to play for my club. I do not care if someone is gay. It does not make a difference to their ability to perform. Like, let players be who they are. And it frustrates me because I get really upset about it, because men's sport shouldn't be like that. Why is women's sport able to be so open, but there's still such that toxicity and lad banter? It's not funny, because you don't know what your words could be, how they could affect someone else. And I think you coming out as trans, non-binary, it's such a good thing, because there could be that person at a game who could be, in turmoil about this decision, and then they can talk to someone like you. And it is such an inspiring thing to be that role model, perhaps, that you didn't have growing up.
Well, I mean, hopefully, I having kind of lived as a man, or certainly having been perceived as a man and been in lots of male spaces in my life, like the flip side, or not the flip side, but in addition to what you're saying, actually, so much of it is limiting to the men within it. That the toxicity of the patriarchy and the way that men interact with each other is actually incredibly unfair on men. Like, I have had enough interactions and enough time with people to know they wouldn't, I don't know they necessarily know it, but they don't feel able to be their true, authentic, genuine selves, because a lot of men are just not taught that that's okay for them. And we see that as well in the way that they then treat women's sport often. It's just they look down on women and all things feminine, because they're so scared of and protective of their own masculinity and what it means to be a man. So I really agree with you. I think men's sport has a long way to go. I actually think very often the athletes within it are better than it looks, if you see what I mean, because I think what the patriarchy does and what toxic masculinity does is it aggregates men together. So actually, individuals are often not that bad, but you put them in a group and they become bad, because it's there that they can't be weak with other men. So, for example, I have worked with the England men's team since coming out, and I had nothing but support and kindness from them. And there was definite attempts to get it right in terms of pronouns and things, and definitely, I worked with a lot of them when I was Henry, and then I came out to a lot of them and said, look, it's not my name anymore, and everybody respected that. So I think there's a lot. I totally agree. There's a lot that needs to be improved with men's sport, 100%. I think it has its roots back in toxic masculinity and just men not being allowed to kind of be true to themselves, I think.
Well, I'm very happy, and we are very happy that you can be true to yourself, because also I really want to borrow that outfit too. So goes on there.
You're
as well.
always welcome. You're always welcome.
I'm also tall, so you never know. Might actually be long enough we can share, so it'd be fine.
Yeah, you can have it. You can have it.
Oh, thanks. You can have my, lacrosse hoodie.
I don't think it will fit me, sadly. I do have somewhere in this room, or maybe downstairs, your women's cricket chat purple bobble hat. So
there you go.
It would be an item of clothing for an item of clothing.
The Arctic temperatures are on the way, so you're going to need it, and it would match nicely with the dress. Maybe you can wear it at Eurovision.
Yeah, I'll see. I'll let you know. We'll come back to that.
Well, maybe sideline that one. Perhaps not for Eurovision. So we obviously don't want to keep you all day because you need to digress that you've got tickets to Eurovision, because that needs some thinking about rather than having to talk to us. But we always like to round up with some sort of quick fire questions. Quite often we go for what's your favorite sledge you've ever used or heard.
I don't have one.
I'm going to kick off with that one.
I've got a good one, actually.
Okay, right. What's your favourite sledge you've ever used or heard?
Not used, but heard. The England women's analyst is a fantastic man called Chris Sykes. He's been in the job the whole time I was in the job. Ian Salisbury, former England coach, lovely man. Ian Salisbury in 2016, before my time with the team, was going at Chris and slagging him off. I think it was about Chris's socks. He was just slagging off Chris's socks on a tour of South Africa. He just kept picking it in front of everyone, all the players, all the staff, just kind of, belittling Chris. And Ian, as you may know, played cricket for England men, but he played maybe 10 times or something. Very talented cricketer, but he didn't play as many times for England as maybe he would have liked. And he was going at Chris. And Chris just said, very quiet man, Chris just said, Sols, if you worried as much about leg spin as you do my socks, you'd have played many more times for England.
Love
it was great.
I love that. And I also love how personal it is too. Nice. Alex, you want to go to the next one?
Sure. Whose idea was it for the viral TikTok, and how much convincing did it take?
Glennie. And I didn't need any convincing. I was quite happy. I think who else is in it? Natty's in it. I think maybe Heather and Nat, I think maybe needed a little bit of convincing. They're not kind of TikTok adjacent people. I can't remember who else is in it. Me, Crossy, Glennie, Jonesy,
Danny Wyatt.
Danny, yeah. Not much convincing required. Sarah's TikTok is fantastic. Auntie Saz, as I call her. She has a fantastic social media presence. So yeah, anything that Glennie wants on the social, I'm very happy to be on board with.
I just thought it was so ironic that when it came to the bit about the car being from Japan, that it was Nat who said it, because obviously she's born in Japan. So
Tokyo born.
Laughing my head off. But I was lip syncing on point.
Although I always find that frustrating because we were better at lip syncing than the video appears. Like the way it saves, it always saves out of sync. I don't understand. We were better.
A bit laggy.
We were better.
What's your favourite item at a cricket tea?
Oh gosh, we could get. I know exactly the answer to this. We could go for a long time here about English cricket gowns and their best teas. I'll tell you now.
I know what's coming, don't I?
It's the banana, the chopped banana in kind of honey custard that Somerset do, Taunton. Yeah. Unbelievable. Well done, Somerset.
We actually had Sinalo Jafta on last series, and she was on about it too when we brought it
Did she? She liked it. Good on her.
Everyone loves it. I don't really like bananas, so I feel like
it's not for you then. I don't think that one.
Probably not for me. Where's the best place that has food? I mean, you hear about Lord's all the time, but I love that the first thing that's come up is the Taunton banana pudding.
I would say the food at English cricket grounds generally is very good. Leicester jumps out, really old school kind of service situation, but very nice food. Where else? Where else do we play? I'm trying to think. What's the food like at Derby? Yeah, Chelmsford's definitely around.
Hove?
Hove's good, I think. Hove's quite good. The one that jumps out is Taunton. Leicester is good.
Derby?
I'm trying to remember Derby, which doesn't bode particularly well for it. Oh, Derby's all right. We always eat in the gym, which is weird. That's why I can't remember it. Derby, not bad. No issues with Derby at all. I'm not going to criticise any of them, but definitely Leicestershire and Somerset, my faves personally.
But mine was other than Lords, Manchester and Edgbaston.
You see, and this is a sign of the times for the women's game. I have not worked at either of those grounds with England women.
Stop.
So this summer, well, they're actually not at Old Trafford, but this summer they can attest to the Birmingham food. Birmingham, I'm told, Edgbaston, where I grew up, is incredible. So I will, but I can't vouch for it, but I'm sure it's fantastic.
I went there once and they had a pick and mix as well. Like,
well, you got a lot to be said for that.
Like, no, in Birmingham. Moving on. What's favorite music? Favorite band?
Self-esteem.
That was quick. And the last TV show you binged?
The last TV show I binged actually was Arrested Development. I was re-watching it on Netflix. I've watched it the whole thing through before, but it was a kind of tragic, lonely Netflix night, and I thought I'd start again. So for the last few months, that's been my go-to background viewing.
I love that. I just rewatched all of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. So
great suggestion. That's why you mentioned Sabrina.
That's when you said
when we were on WhatsApp.
Yeah. They said, what's the
dress code? And you said 90s Sabrina.
90s Sabrina, which actually
I've not
has come back into fashion a lot now. I think.
Hence the scrunchie.
What a show!
Great show.
Great
Honestly,
show.
Hen, if you want show recommendations, I'll forward them on to Georgie to forward on to you. You'll be watching things like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Community.
Great show.
Arrested Development, and It's Always Sunny.
Me and my flatmates are currently working through Dinner Date. And
Dinner Date?
Yeah.
I've not seen that.
Oh,
I've not seen that.
It's literally this person goes and has dinner with different people, blind dates, and they cook for them in the week, and it's cringe and amazing. But Married at First Sight Australia has just started again, so now I'm out of any.
I'd like to be very, very old and flag my love of two specific shows: Homes Under the Hammer and Grand Designs, which are two fantastic shows.
And the best bit in Homes Under the Hammer
that.
Is the bit. Have you seen the video they made of him? Because he always goes like this.
Yeah, Martin.
With piano music, and it's just fantastic.
What made you buy the property? Yeah.
Oh, it's
great show.
Well, on that bombshell, I think we can leave it on that one. You've got enough TV selections to keep you going until the cricket kicks off, which is quite soon. But we will leave you to ponder over the fact that you will be going to Eurovision in just a couple of time. It's now what is it? It's the 7th of March.
7th of March, so 2 months pretty much.
So 2 months. We want all the videos, all the outfit choices, and all the excitement. Hen Cowen, thank you so much for joining us on Women's Cricket Chat today. I'm sure I speak for myself and Alex to say it's been absolutely bloody marvellous.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel totally privileged to be here. It's an honour. Keep flying the flag for the women's game.
Flying all those flags. Thank you so much.